The South African Constitution has provisions allowing for asylum seekers to enter the country and allows for self-employment so they can sustain themselves. But the recent spate of children dying from alleged food poisoning has created an uproar in many communities, with some calling for the closure of foreign-owned spaza shops. Others want government to ensure that these businesses are registered and compliant with all the laws. What are the requirements for asylum seekers and refugees who want to register and operate businesses in South Africa? We speak now to legal expert Ian Allis and publicity secretary at the African Diaspora Forum, Bongani Mkhwanazi. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Chava.
All right. First and foremost,
good morning, Mr. Chava.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to know from you, Bongani, what is the position of the African Diaspora Forum?
The initial reaction for us is, if there is a problem, the law must take its course. It cannot be done in a vigilante way. So whatever the problem is, the law must address that problem. If a spaza shop is not complying to health and safety, the law must do the inspection and do the correct procedure there. Where we see people walk into these spazas and suddenly say, you are shutting down, it does not ascribe to the law. So our position then is to say, we will not condone any migrant operating illegally or operating in an unsafe environment. It's a problem. We won't accept it ourselves. But the law must be followed correctly. What we're seeing now is a bit of a tussle where there's a talk that spaza shops have been taken over, wherein people must remember most of these migrants who started operating spazas would not have found someone there. To take over, you have to find someone doing something there, and then you take over. It was migrants who had come here, some for political refuge, some for economic refuge, who then would have started these small shops, rent from an owner of a house or whatever, and then start to sell, providing a service that would initially not have been there, a convenience at the time.
All right, so
yes.
if I'm understanding you correctly, you are all for asylum seekers and refugees running small businesses as long as they're doing so legally.
The law must just be complied with.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Ian, let me bring you in here. For those who are not, maybe don't understand the journey of someone seeking safety, at a very basic level, can you just explain what it means to be an asylum seeker?
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers. Basically, with an asylum seeker, it's somebody who's coming into the country, not necessarily who's not coming in on a visa or even necessarily a passport. They're coming in on very limited papers and and largely unverified, based primarily on the fact that they are seeking refuge and safety from their country of origin, be it because of discrimination, violence, threats upon their lives due to either political, gender, or any other type of factor that might go ahead and be life-threatening or necessitate the immediate escape from one's country, like, for example, certain wars and genocidal regimes.
So what rights and privileges, Ian, are afforded to refugees and asylum seekers in South Africa?
Those are actually very limited, because largely to the fact that they can't be fully verified, because yes, most should in actual fact have a passport, but some of them are escaping because of that exact reason that there is no passport. So if one could say, economic abilities are very, very limited to more along the lines of skilled and unskilled labor, more menial services, and primarily non-business, if one could say, subsistence employment. Where you get a lot of migrant workers, miners, hawkers, that type of an extent of handyman, painters, that type of employment, because yes, it's self-employed, but it doesn't necessitate the registration of a company and the provisions of FICA being complied with.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, so essentially it goes against the law for asylum seekers and for refugees to start businesses or register businesses in South Africa?
Largely it does, because technically they can't be fully verified, and also their background cannot go ahead and be made, cannot be ascertained, especially with regard to registration for businesses, which is required by the Department of Trade and Industry.
Okay, now
as well as Home Affairs.
With Ian having just given clarity and some education around the rights of asylum seekers and refugees in South Africa to register businesses, now we have to recap and say, so essentially what this means is that it is actually illegal for asylum seekers and refugees to register businesses in South Africa. So then when you say that the position of the forum is, for as long as they are within their legal, within the legal constructs of the law in operating their businesses, they are illegally living in the country, essentially. How do you respond to that?
The whole asylum process starts with the reception into the country. So this person would go to a center and claim refuge. I have this problem and that problem in my country. I will not be able to stay there. Then the South African authorities assess the validity of this claim. They give an asylum status that allows someone to study and work. I believe it conduct business. I stand to be corrected by the legal prof. But as the time passes on, the asylum status can then change into a refugee status once it's ascertained. You will find most of these guys, which we are finding is mostly Ethiopians that are in that segment, Somalians that started mostly in that Spaza segment. They were coming from war-torn regions, the Tigrayan region in Ethiopia, Somali wars, which everyone would know. Most have transitioned to refugee status, which accords them that right to start whatever they want to start.
To register a business?
Yes, to register a business, because you have to prove, because once they get to a refugee status, they are given a document that is nearly like a South African ID, really. It's a South African ID. So that status allows them to conduct business.
So in light of the recent deaths of the numerous, countless number of children that we've seen, and many of the students having fallen ill to the point where, you know, our provincial Department of Education has halted the ongoing processes of surrounding entities. What do you have to say? What's your position?
First, we pass our condolences to these families. It's a very sad thing, and which we cannot condone. We condemn any act that would lead to a death of anyone. But it's a bit of a curious matter that all along there's trading, there's businesses, they are in the communities for many, many years. In a space of 2 months, these business people collude that let's kill our customers. It's a bit.
So what do you make of it? It sounds to me like you're leading towards a conspiracy theory.
For me, it says there should be a deeper investigation. The recent investigation led by Dr. Aaron Mzwaledi spoke of organophosphates, which is quite a perverse thing that is happening all over.
Organophosphates?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
It's poison in a sense, because unfortunately when people think poison, they think someone took poison and poured. People use pesticides and herbicides for plants and stuff, and it is believed then that this has that effect. So I'm not a chemical fundi. I will not explain organophosphates in the correct way, but there is that thing going on where the finding says no, there was no expired goods or consumed by these kids, but these kids, one of them was found with chips in their pocket, which had organophosphate. I'm not going to be able to explain exactly that detail, but it nearly absolves anyone from direct wrongdoing. So
So wait, it sounds like you're absolving,
No, what must then... not absolving anyone. I'm saying...
responsibility.
What must happen now is...
And the investigations are ongoing.
The investigation must then say, what is the source of this organophosphate and how has it become so widespread in the country all of a sudden? Where was it all along?
But what do you make? I feel like you're tiptoeing around the issue. What do you make as the Diaspora Forum? What do you make of the situation and what is happening in South Africa right now?
It's a very unfortunate circumstance. And because there's deaths, we now would say, hey, what's going on? We have, in the past 2 weeks, our chair, Amir Sheikh, we discussed with a large section of the Ethiopian community and to see who is regulated, who is actually operating a business that's registered with the municipality, etc. And we are saying we are not going to sit and then say just the government must see to this. We want to have a database of who are these people operating. We want to see what are you using for chemicals to deal with pests and rodents. What's going on?
Okay, so you are saying that they should take some accountability.
They must.
Okay.
If we are to be fair, everyone must take accountability here.
All right. Ian, let me bring you in here. I mean, we've been dealing with spaza shops and undocumented individuals that are selling expired foods and sweets to children, allegedly. What are the explicit legal requirements for foreigners to obtain business permits in South Africa?
Okay, first and foremost, I think one must also establish there's a difference between an asylum or refugee-owned or operated business and a foreign-operated business. What a lot of these township spaza shops are is they actually run, if one could say, people are employed there are asylum seekers. But what's happened is a lot of them are actually owned and operated as a smaller part of another shop that's basically will be located and registered with DTR. The problem that primarily happens here with these is that there's a lack of acceptability. The municipal bylaws, it's a municipal bylaw aspect. And the problem that happens with this is not just, it goes beyond the slight political aspect, but it's a complete non-compliance with the actual municipal bylaws, and that these places need to be properly registered. There needs to be health and safety certificates issued by the municipality, and that when they're running these kitchens, the food must in actual fact be prepared and suppliers need to be checked. So yes, that's the reason why you have a lot of these expired goods that are being sold. Maybe those are not the direct cause of the deaths, but they're certainly going to be a cause in certain respects of people getting sick, and also how these are actually handled. The fact is, when you get, say for example, a packet of crisps or chips from your retailer, let's use a normal Simba packet of chips. Those things are manufactured in a very specific type of environment. It's the same problem that could happen where listeriosis actually started. Something gets contaminated in a factory, but in those cases, the factories are covered and they then have to do massive cleanouts. In these situations, we don't know where the food is ever prepared, where it's procured from, or what they actually do, even if they have a health and safety certificate. And that's where the problem comes, is it's not so much whether it's just the foreign-owned or the asylum run, it's the actual business itself of how they're doing it for the aspect of profit.
All right. So, Bongani, what are the objectives of the Africa Diaspora Forum, and what role in particular is the forum playing in this moment, in this time, during this crisis?
The Africa Diaspora Forum was formed in 2008 after some unrest and spats of attacks on migrants. There was quite a crisis, people were displaced, and the government essentially needed help, I should say, because who are these people, what languages are they, translation, everything, all the issues that made leaders start to say, we are going to form a forum that is going to take care of this situation. Then it moved on from that, and cutters for migrant communities, according people then affiliate per country as a migrant association under ADF as an umbrella body. Now, currently, When this started, some of us were like, no, guys, this cannot happen. Leaders that are involved in your communities who are in the spaza shop, what's going on? Meetings were set and discussions were made, and most of them were denying that there is any issue. Even now, we confront them and say, but they are saying there's this Okano first phase. They themselves, the spaza people, don't know.
And we know that there's not just an issue, there's a crisis. So in closing, and very briefly, Ian, what do you think is the solution to this, and I will call it again, a crisis in South Africa?
Well, first and foremost, there needs to be a diversion of resources and authorities going in there, checking these spaza shops. Because it's one thing if they're just distributing pre-packaged, pre-manufactured goods of chips in that way, and it's just checking the date. It's another thing. The biggest problem is the distribution of hot foods and foods that are prepared in a non-commercial kitchen. Those must be disallowed immediately, because that's where the contravention comes and that's where the risk comes. Is if it's expired food, that's a different thing, because that should be confiscated. But as a general whole, they need to be supervised and double-checked. Whoever they run by, foreigners, asylum seekers, locals, doesn't matter. They need to go ahead and check the standards of what is being there, and the police and municipal bylaw enforcers need to go ahead and become involved in that, which means it's another use of resources which we're limited on.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you very much, Bongani, for your time.
Thank you.